Hi folks, so my name is Shane Curtin. I'm the co-founder and MD at Vroom Digital. So today I'm joined by Bernard Brogan and Ailish McSweeney of Peptalk. Hey folks, how are you?
Hey Shane, how are you?
Hi Shane.
Good, thanks. So I suppose just to give you a little bit of background, today's collaboration has come about from Vroom. We're looking at how search volume on Google and YouTube in particular has been impacted by COVID-19, particularly on employee well-being and mental health. So it made a hell of a lot of sense to talk to the market leaders in the Irish market, which are Peptalk. So I suppose I'd just quickly like to introduce Bernard. Bernard's a qualified accountant, founder of Peptalk. He's their CCO. He's obviously played for Dublin for over a decade, 6 All-Irelands, 12 Leinster medals, and Footballer of the Year in 2010. Also joined by Ailish McSweeney. Ailish is a former international sprinter, specialised in the 60 and 100 metres. Ailish has won numerous national titles as well as reaching multiple European and world semi-finals, and earned silver and bronze in the 2015 Summer Universiade. So guys, you're pretty much a hard act to follow, but my own name is Shane, as I said. I'm co-founder here at Vroom, and we're a performance digital agency. So we use analytical data to help drive on SEO, pay-per-click, paid social and digital PR campaigns. I suppose for us as a performance agency, analytics data dictates campaign design and direction. So as you can imagine, we serve a lot of campaigns on Google. So we've worked hard to become top 5% premier partner across EMEA. Our own HQ is just off Merrion Square. And like a lot of other Irish companies, we've not set foot in our office physically in over 3 months now. And it looks to be a few months more before we're going to get back in there. The team over in Peptalk, you guys have been on our radar for a good couple of years now. COVID has had an impact on how companies, on how they deliver their services. That's clear. Work from home has become the new norm, and companies and employees have been forced to adapt pretty much overnight, since pretty much week 2 of March, ready or not. Being a performance agency, our team have analysed search volume and data relevant to employee wellness and well-being, and our findings are there's been a large increase in search volume online due to the impact of COVID, specifically in Ireland. So today we're collaborating with Peptalk, Irish market leaders in employee wellness, to get their take on how employers can navigate the new norm. So yeah, I'll just kick it in, and I'm going to ask them, Bernard, can I ask, where did the idea for a company focused on employee well-being, where did that originate from?
Yeah, I suppose you talked about Vroom being an analytical performance business. We, myself and Ailish, are obviously from a sporting background in our personal lives, and obviously different in professional. I'm an accountant, and Ailish is a former lawyer as well. So I suppose performance is the key word there, and the idea around Peptalk came from business leaders around Dublin and Ireland looking for higher performance of their staff, and been involved in sport, understanding that well-being is such a key attribute and driver of performance. I was asked to do a lot of talks around well-being, around different types of performance. And I kind of was thinking to myself, I was saying that, yes, it's great to get in a room of 50 people, and that's amazing, and you can drive some messaging home. But to drive real performance and sustainable performance, you need regular communications, you need constant information, you need constant habit-changing behaviours. So we went away and thought about how do we actually make real change in the workplace, and that takes technology. So we went away and developed a performance, a digital tool that is communicating with employees on a daily basis. Instead of me just talking to a group of people, of 50 people in a room, we can now scale the message across an organization of 2,000, 5,000 or 15,000 employees. And that message continuously been engaged with them, and that can drive healthy behaviors.
Okay, that's really interesting. And it's clear from your sporting background how that's impacted on and shaped the business and what you've become. So what sort of work does Peptalk do?
Yeah, I suppose what we're trying to fundamentally do is look after the health and well-being of employees, and the byproduct of that is good culture, good performance and healthy minds and mindsets, you know. So yeah, and at least might chat through some of the stuff we're doing currently live, but I think fundamentally we're a digital platform trying to really drive the benefits of health and well-being in organizations.
I suppose the way we do that, I guess, through our technology is we target the managers, Shane, and we target the employees, because the way we look at it, managers have such an impact on their teams, their performance, as well as their well-being. I think that's really important way to deliver. And another thing we really emphasize, both at team level and across the organization, is the importance of community. And I guess in what we're talking about today, it's never been more important that you have a strong community, and that's a linchpin in the culture of your organization. So there are some of the kind of things that underpin our strategy and how we look at well-being in a real holistic manner. I guess it's really important to us at Peptalk that any well-being strategy and how we do what we do is sustainable, and that it's not a buzzword in an organization, and that it's about real kind of cultural change.
Yeah, you mentioned that word culture, and like, I suppose it's such an important glue that keeps the whole thing together, because business is all about teams, and you need a team to be motivated and in the right frame of mind. And I think people definitely need to understand their role in the team, and they need to feel secure in their role and aligning with company goals, because it's all about the sum of the parts working together, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you've hit the nail on the head there. That's the core of having a high performing team, I guess. And I think what we're seeing in this kind of COVID-19 landscape is people having to think outside the box on how to maintain that culture, you know, especially where they've worked so hard and having a good one. It might be quite based on their office environment and being physically present. And people have had to think outside the box on how to do that, so that their teams are still performing, because, you know, there's still a business need at the end of the day, and they need to keep up productivity, and it's definitely never been more challenging.
Yeah, I think there's been a huge amount of systems and processes that all businesses have had to look at and shine a light on over the last 3 months, because there has been drastic change.
The benefit, just to jump in on the culture piece, like the benefit of, I mean, obviously every organization in the world for the last 50 years has been trying to build positive culture, and in sport, we look at culture heavily, because a good culture drives sustainable high performance. And I suppose why in the business world you want good culture is like times of challenge like this COVID-19 time, that when you have a positive environment, when managers have good relationships with their teams, when leadership is strong, when you have that teamwork, that selflessness, all the things that you strive for in the sporting world, in the business world, it's just exactly the same. That when there's challenge, a strong culture, people row together, they look out for each other, they have conversations. There will be challenges through this period, and a good culture and an organization with a strong culture will be able to meet these challenges head on and help their employees get through it. You know what I mean? And we're trying to provide one of the parts of that building that proper culture, and that's a healthy culture. Around looking after the individual on a human level. There's loads of technology that helps your workflows and your teamwork and your tasks. We're very much managing that human connection, that water cooler moment, that a community piece that's not there when you're working at home, sitting at home on your own, and everyone's demographic at home, everyone's environment is different, and it can be challenging.
You make a really interesting point, Bernard, because I think we're all using Teams and Zoom and Skype or Google Meet, but like, it's very one-dimensional. Like it forgets everybody lacks that kind of conversation in the office, the crack that they were having with their team physically, and it's trying to kind of stir that up again virtually. It's tough. Like, it's not easy.
Yeah, and we've kind of come to that word of the water cooler moment. That's what's gone in the workplace. That even on a work problem, if you have a work problem and you had a colleague who were sitting across the beside you, you could ask a question, you could share an idea, you could solve little business problems, or on a personal level, you can have those. How's your weekend? You can have that relation, you have a bit of banter. When you're sitting at home, yes, you have interactions at times through a work platform, a Zoom or a Teams, Teamwork, or any of those, but you're just working. You know what I mean? You're not having any human connection conversations or anything like that sometimes go kind of unappreciated in the day to work. But human beings are built that they want to be part of a tribe, they want to feel part of something, they want to feel a connection with people, and the workplace is a big part of all of our lives, and having your teammate, your colleagues there that you're friends with, and all that stuff is so important to the mental health and stuff of people, and fundamentally to the performance as well, which is obviously a key driver.
Definitely. Like we've noticed that there's been a 9% increase in queries related to team building, which is really interesting. Like, have you guys at Peptalk had to adapt your products, your services, like given the current climate to suit areas such as, say, remote team building at the moment?
Yeah, and I guess suppose we've been lucky in some senses in that, we've never seen team building as just, the traditional away day that happens once a year. I guess for us, it's part of that holistic approach. So in some senses, we've been ahead of the curve, and we've known that the future of work has always been that people are going to be working remotely. I guess what no one could have foreseen that it would happen in such a dramatic, and unplanned fashion.
Yeah.
But having said that, some things that we do, and they're versions of which anyone can do with their organization, is giving managers ways to do that team building thing on a routine basis, so it becomes part of the norm. So one thing that we would do is have manager toolboxes. So if we're working on a particular wellbeing theme for this month, we won't just give out that content or the events to the employees. We'll give a manager something that they can use to generate a discussion among their team. So if it's something to do with mental health, they'll have discussion points so they can actually have an informal conversation with their team. Some managers are really comfortable with this. Some people need those kind of supports to actually have that connection and that one-on-one, and make sure they're asking the right thing. And for us, that's how you build a team, is have that kind of empathetic leadership, asking the right questions, give everyone on your team a voice, because you're including all of them in what you call your team building. And then I guess as well on our platform, we would have a lot of gamification that kind of generates that bit of crack and that bit of fun and that bit of team building.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're doing at the moment as we speak is what we call our Workplace Wellbeing Championship. So it's a time of the year where we pit our clients against each other in a team competition that's kind of mostly around activity, but with an emphasis on the other areas of wellbeing too. So they're getting points for their company, so they're collaborating as a community within their organization, having a bit of banter and a bit of crack to try and win our Workplace Wellbeing Championships.
That's really interesting because
go on.
No, I'm just thinking that that's really interesting because businesses are teams, and we are competing for clients and employees. And I suppose it's a really good approach to galvanize, and you're empowering leadership to kind of say, right, here's the tools, go off now, and not just a tool, but this is how you kind of engage with your team in a virtual space. Whereas before we would have done that in the boardroom or in a breakout room or offsite or whatever it might be. But can I ask you, how are virtual events being received by companies that were in the past very traditional, as in they were working inside their own box, and now it's a virtual event? Do you get a lot of pushback, or are some companies kind of slower to adapt than others? How does it play out?
Oh yeah, some companies are definitely slower to adapt, but I guess right now everyone has to give it their best shot. And I guess a lot of companies at the start were so, caught up with giving people, the tools to be able to connect remotely at home naturally, because they had to look at their physical environment first. And I think as soon as that was done, people kind of opened up their minds to, now, what are we going to do with this besides work? So we've seen a really good uptake of our virtual events. Because one of the things we found powerful is having a bit of regularity there. So we would have a big push every Friday. I think there's one going on right now at the moment with one of our mobility experts. And people are really it's a reason to come together that's not around work conversation, and something you can talk about after. The same with our team competition, the Workplace Wellbeing Championship. So it's something to have the banter about afterwards as well, that you all engaged in something outside of, your run-of-the-mill meeting. So we see all of that as really contributing to team building.
It makes sense because I think you're probably sick of the work side of things when you get to try and team building. You want to be working on things that are just kind of bigger than what you've been doing on a day-to-day to kind of galvanize your team. So it makes a lot of sense the way you guys kind of approach it. So can I ask, since COVID-19, have you noticed any changes in how the companies you work with are approaching their employee wellbeing strategy?
Yeah, the emphasis come from boardroom, from senior manager now. I think the organizations are quite aware of the challenges for individuals working in this remote environment, especially how drastically it was impacted, and people's setup weren't right, and different things like that. So there's a big I suppose it's elevated the well-being conversation to the boardroom, whereas before I might have lived in a HR function, or somebody who's real passionate about it, or someone who someone who's into their mindset or mindfulness or fitness, who's senior in an organization, our early clients in the early days were these passionate people who understood about performance and well-being. Now this is actually a need. We actually have a real challenge here to adapt to this environment, and it's not going away for the short term. There's going to be, and whatever way the future looks, there's always going to be an element of remote working and that environment, I think, in most organizations. So yeah, I think that was the real big kind of driver for this space, and that organizations are stepping up and taking awareness of it. In the past, there might have been tokenism with some of it, but it's really kind of a genuine approach now. In fairness, and managers and senior leaders are communicating, as Eilish said, around being empathetic in your communications, understanding the challenges, showing vulnerability. Like effective leadership is showing vulnerability, which builds trust, and having trust between an organization and having conversations that's what's magic in an organization. How you actually get to that, you have to people have to feel like they're being supported, and both financially, because financial well-being is a big part of it, both emotionally, and then also physically as well, is the one that everyone thinks about when you think about well-being. But there's a big emotional play, there's a big resilience mindset play, and there's a financial play as well, that you're fundamentally, we're all trying to look after our families and ourselves and whatever our environment is, and or be ambitious, whatever it is that your motivations are. All of these boxes need to be ticked, and it's coming to the fore.
I think when you talked about communication there, it's a really good point. I think with the coronavirus, communication is a well-being strategy in itself. I think that we see our clients really adopting. They actually know, I need to reach out to my employees to look after them. That's something we're seeing. So they're actually leaning on us more as a communications channel than ever before, because I guess your well-being channel, whatever way you deliver your well-being to employees, tends to be the place where good news lives. It's for your good news updates and your supports and your bit of fun. So we've seen more leaders than ever kind of recording clips, using our social feed to get their message out to employees. I think that's been really, really positive. And I actually really think that's something that's going to last beyond this. I think that kind of, that informal communication across the organization.
We're asking our senior leaders sorry, Alicia, just to double down on that. I think you're dead right. We're asking any senior leaders and our clients to have conversations, to do a video and put it up there. Like a lot of these people, and especially the large organizations, the banks, might have 15,000 employees, they've never seen the boss, never seen the senior leadership team, but now they're talking to them, they're seeing their personality, they're seeing their human side, they're talking about some of their challenges, they're talking about real life, and it just makes you feel, wow, they're open up to me, they're giving me some of their insights, but they're also, I feel I'm part of this team. There's no better way than that communication, to make someone feel part of something, you know what I mean? So you're dead right, Alicia.
Yeah, like I think comms are huge, and like I think how you communicate, I think the tone, how often you communicate with your teams, like that's all going to be extremely important as well to build rapport. And I think if you look at how companies today can increase, say, employee retention by listening to what the actual employee wants, by giving them a voice and not just telling them what they want to do. Like if you're not clear with your comms and your team, you're on a very slippery slope now more than ever, because like we need unison in companies and we need to react coherently, and it definitely has to come from the top down, from the boardroom, because I think if you haven't got buy-in at the top, it completely makes sense in how you approach that, because how is it going to filter down into your teams, especially with a huge organization? I think it's a little different when you're maybe an SME of 50 staff or less, because you've less people in the chain of command. But it's still a similar structure. It applies to both SME and to larger companies.
Yeah, I think the two words there that jumped out at me from what you said, one was feedback. And that's definitely how both ourselves and our clients, or what we've been emphasizing, I guess, at the moment, is listening and reacting. Because I guess if there was ever a time to pivot, it's now. Sometimes your budget's entrenched at the start of the year and people tend not to change how they might have been, investing in something like well-being or communications. But we've seen people listen to their employees, ask for feedback, listen and react really quickly. I mean, one of the ways we've been working is getting feedback to adapt our content to make sure what we're giving people is really, really relevant to what they need right now. And I think we're seeing the same openness and willingness, I think, from senior leaders.
Yeah, I think the channel works both ways, whereas maybe in the past it just went one way from the boardroom. But I think there's a realization out there today that if you want to retain good people and you want to grow your business, it's about that comms piece. on YouTube in May, there was 110% increase in the search for home office video. Like the search volume increase shows us employees are seeking out how to best maximize their new work environment. I suppose my question is, does environment affect productivity, and how can employers help their employees adjust now?
It's a crazy stat, isn't it? 110%, but it's so understandable. Yeah, I guess, I mean, there's loads of research out there to say working remotely can actually increase productivity, but it's under different scenarios. You know, it's when you're set up physically, like you say, with the right environment, you know, minimal distractions, and also that you have in-office days. And they're the things we're missing at the moment, I guess. Yeah. Most people who are working from home right now have not done that before on this kind of routine basis. You know, they have their kids around the space, they're kind of in a shared working space, and hard to maintain that schedule and that balance. So yeah, it's just such a strange environment, and I really think it is affecting productivity. If you don't, I think, you know, acknowledge that as a leader or as an organization, then you're kind of going down the slippery slope to losing your employees, because you've got to acknowledge that and be empathetic that people aren't working as normal and they're doing their best. I guess we're going to take a lot of learnings out of this. People are, I think, the research is showing that people do want to continue to work from home remotely to some level, and they're going to really understand what they need to do that from now on. So real positives can come back from this, I think, and from the challenges. But right now, I think people just have to be understanding, review their ways of working. You know, look at your meeting schedule and say, do we need these meetings? Do we need to do them in the same way as before? You know, what's suitable for this? A video meeting, a quick call, you know, a walking meeting. Will I pick up the phone and have a walk? You know, you really need to just challenge the normal ways of working, because they just don't apply, I think, in this environment.
I did a 5K run meeting there last week, which was a new one, but it's a new take on the walking meeting. But like I had to do some exercise. You talk about environments. I have 2 twin babies. Kira, my wife, is working full time. She's in pharmaceutical manufacturing. That's obviously still manufacturing, still on site. So heavy. She's in communications as well. So we have an hour on, hour off every day throughout the day. So my work day is obviously chopped up. And obviously the kids go for a nap. We get a bit of time, then they're up, and then we're always kind of just looking for a bit of time. So we work into the evenings, and then obviously exercise is so important. So like things like that, they're just innovations, and organizations understanding that stuff might, like for people with families or young kids, might have to spend an hour in the evening catching up on bits they mightn't have been able to do in the day, especially if 2 parents are working at home, or the single parent, or whatever that is. There's some challenges there that are real, and that I think empathetic organizations will be flexible in that space. Obviously some organizations need certain things done, or be it manufacturing, or be it call centers, whatever it is, need to put on certain times. But I think in all the workplace and understanding the environment is difficult and different for everyone at home, and demographics are totally different, that you need to be empathetic. But it goes 2 ways as well, that the employer has that trust, and the employees give the trust back that they are doing their best when they're working with it, that they are finding their own ways to be effective and be efficient and to perform. And that's important as well, obviously, that they're able to get through as much work as they can in the day, you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting, like how you've had to adapt and how people are adapting to, it's a new environment. Like we have to come up with new ways. We have to embrace change, because otherwise, like you're going to have unhappy employees, and unhappy employees aren't productive, and like it doesn't work. It doesn't help you perform as a team or as a unit, or to try and strive towards being a high performance team, because if you can't get the fundamentals, you can't get your basics right. And I think we're all looking for new fundamentals, because that's changed, and it's about kind of, I think, trusting the people that you work around. But different scenarios, like we've had Sophia, who started on our digital PR team 12 weeks ago. She started on the Friday that we locked down. We closed the office on Wednesday. So like trying to onboard somebody remotely in COVID versus how we would have done that in Merrion Square, it's so different to kind of to try and galvanize and kind of get to know people, and to understand not just how you work with different teams, but what people are into outside of work. And I think going forward, that's going to be key for businesses, because like we'd have people that would be 4 or 5 years working on our teams. They understand our culture. They understand kind of how we do things. Whereas when you're bringing somebody new into the fold but work from home, or with remote, it's just a different, there's a lot more time, I think, that needs to be put in to to show somebody what you're about, because you miss that sitting beside somebody, having them on your shoulder in the office, whereby that was just the norm for us. When somebody came in at the start, they kind of shadowed somebody, they got to know people. We did like walks around Merrion Square to get to know different people on teams. So all that stuff is gone. So you're forced into a kind of a different mindset. But yeah, all really interesting.
And I think onboarding has been actually a really good way for us all to make sure we stay on top of it. I mean, this is just internally in Peptalk, but something we've been chatting to clients about as well in their toolboxes, is the onboarding experience. And same as you, we've had a few new employees join in the last few weeks. So something we did last week was a virtual me box. So we're still a small enough organization that we can give everyone a little bit of time in an all hands meeting. So everyone on the team just presented, a little 3-minute about themselves, whether like through little videos or whatever way they wanted to do it creatively last week. And we had great crack. It was an hour and a half of laughing and really getting to know everyone. So that was really fun. And just making time for a virtual cuppa. So we've been popping virtual cuppas in each other's diary just to make sure we have that like informal touch point, a bit of crack one-on-one. Gives us an excuse to, just get away from the emails for a few minutes. So you definitely have to put a bit of extra thinking time into it. That's for sure.
That's it. I think the impact of COVID it's far reaching, and from the analytics and data that we've researched, I'll just give you an example. We work with a mental health charity called Turn to Me. Since February, they've had a 300% increase in visits to their group counselling page. They've also had a 250% increase in visits to their one-to-one counselling page. They are staggering stats. They're mind-boggling. For those struggling with remote, how can employers help today, folks?
Yeah, the acute mental health issues and are real, and there is a lot of challenges with we're working from home. The isolation, the environment at home, the stress of having family, trying to get work deadlines, all of that stuff is just tenfold than it was when you get out of the office, sit in the office for at least 10 hours straight and try and solve it. So the challenges are very real, and having those supports and communicating that it's okay to not be okay. We've had some great influencers in Ireland around, like Zabrezi and these people who have kind of trying to break down the stigma of mental health issues, especially in males. And we work a lot with the construction industry, which is obviously not one that would be well known for well-being, but they have a lot of young males and females that are away from home. Some of them in Europe, in data centers or building sites, and they're away from home and they're drinking in the evenings. What they do as an Irish person socially abroad, the first thing you think about is let's go to the pub, and that can compound. And if that behaviour continues, it becomes a habit and all the challenges. So mental health and having those supports and a resource in each organisation. Things like EAP, a lot of organisations will have EAP, employee assistance programs. Making that information readily available, breaking down the stigma. And we do a lot of education around EAP with our clients that have a number saying, actually, there's so much resource in an EAP. It's not just about if you're really, really struggling with mental health. There's help around financial well-being, there's psychological help, there's relationship advice, there's loads of different things that isn't the acute piece, but there is a lot of acute piece. But organizations understanding that they need to talk about it, to give avenues of people to access numbers like you mentioned, turn to me there, or other organizations that will help them. But it's about just opening up that dialogue, that conversation. When you have a relationship with your manager and you have that empathy and you've had a couple of conversations about personal issues, not just always about business. There's a relationship there, and that even breaks down some of the stress around anxiety. So a manager says to you, geez, I know, Shane, you have a tough environment there. I know you have the challenge at home with the family and this and that and the other. You're like going, actually, maybe I can have a chat with him about it. So maybe your compounding of that stress and that anxiety in your chest is relieved because you feel like there's an avenue for you to speak. And a lot of that, I'm not an expert in the space or anything like that, but a lot of it is probably because people have to hold back information. Probably that compounds a lot of challenges. I was on the board of Aware for a long time, and I'm still an ambassador, so I'm quite au fait with the space. And I think just having avenues to speak sometimes is the best exercise. I know, Elise, you talk about this in a lot of talks that you do, is the two most proven ways to deal with mental stress or anxiety are exercise and meditation, I think. Is that correct? Or So that like obviously there's loads of ways of dealing with it, but having somewhere to talk and exercise and having these good behaviors, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent people from getting into the acute stage with exercise, with conversation, with good relationships, with water cooler moments. And I suppose that's what is our passion. We're passionate about trying to help people, I suppose.
Yeah, I think just echo what you said, Bernard, really, when it comes to the increased pressure on people in terms of their mental health, like employers, they have responsibility absolutely to help. And I think more and more are stepping up, and it's like Bernard said, in two ways. It's informally open up the door for that conversation, making sure you ask the right questions and in the right environment. And that's why we always keep coming back to stuff about the informal conversation, the picking up your phone and the asking employees how they're doing during this time. I mean, it could just be as simple as that, to actually make sure someone gets the support they want. And then a lot of employers who have really great resources for their employees to go to, they don't realize the employees just don't know about them. You have to actually over communicate those supports a little bit to make sure everyone hears about them, because it's just pointless having these amazing benefits and people just don't even know they're there. And normalizing the fact that they're there. So if you mentioned that you had counselling service in every meeting you had with your team, I mean, that would really get through to them, that like, okay, that's really normal that I can access that if I need it. And why don't I just do it when I'm under pressure at this time, you know?
You know, like, it makes so much sense. Like it's clear as day, like full-time remote, it's not for everybody. And like it showed up clearly in our own data research. Like they're searching for tips online to promote like good mental health during this time. Like, and I suppose lack of support from maybe their employer is almost certainly it's probably aiding that it's leading towards this. And like there's a huge increase in work from home isolation searches. Like they're massively on the rise. Work from home anxiety, that's one of the top search terms that we uncovered over the last couple of months. People are searching for even on Google like phrases like work from home mental health tips. So like if you look at the data as a whole, like depression related searches are up 20%, anxiety and stress are up 19%. Just to throw a few more stats at it, like there's 38% of an increase on YouTube in searches for coping technique videos. Like people are looking for 5-minute meditations. They're looking for stress relieving yoga, stress management. These are things that are all on the up over the last 12 weeks. And this is how I think people are feeling, because that's what they're typing in the search bar, be it on YouTube or be it on Google.
Data paints such a picture when you say it like that, doesn't it? It's like it's painting a whole picture of exactly what people are dealing with right now and exactly what they need. And I guess for us, the beauty of having a tech solution to Wellbeing is that you can provide all those supports you've mentioned. They're all so different. Yoga videos, you know, exercise tips. Like we had to pivot straight away on our content for COVID support. So one of our executive coaches, his name is a guy called Colin Murphy, from Dynamic Leadership. I mean, he straight away started doing a really short video series, so one tip a day of how to cope with this. So it might be one day, it might be on effective leadership. The next day it might be on, you know, revisiting your schedule. The next day might be on communicating with another employee over an issue. So he just put together a whole series really quickly to try and deal with that, because you need it at your fingertips. I mean, that's why everyone goes online for these tips now, and people are turning to apps more and more for this kind of support. And I think any employer who has technology like that needs to use it, because Bernard, one thing you always say is about reaching people where they are, and that could be at home at like midnight on a Friday night, that they find, you know, they need this kind of support.
Yeah, and you just mentioned a couple of things there. Like we've been asked by one of our big clients to do a 1 minute refresh or restart or meditation, whatever you want to call it, for Zoom calls, because people are going from Zoom call to Zoom call, and they're like, you're getting off the phone at 2 minutes to 3 and you're saying, oh, it's 3 o'clock, and you're stressed, and it's constant, and it's draining. And even like being always on and watching for reaction, you're always like, even on calls, you can potter around, you don't have the mental load of the visual as well as everything. So video conferencing is great, but it has its challenges as well. As an example, as Elise said there, you need to meet, technology allows you to meet people where they're at. It's whether it's a meditation at night at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep, whether it's cooking something healthy for the kids, whether it's financial well-being when you're stressed on a Saturday morning and you're looking at balancing the books. Like you need to be on access, you know what I mean? And that's why Google is so powerful, because it's searchable at all times, you know what I mean? And we're trying to be live in that world about meeting people where they're at. And there's loads of organizations we worked with that had great resources before, but it was off your desktop, off your email. And that's not when people have time or mindset to engage with wellbeing. It has to be in their own terms for it to be truly effective. And that's where we're trying to meet them. Especially
in getting a trusted source. I mean, you don't know what you'll find online, and unless you have some kind of background or you're a bit savvy about the area, you're not always you don't know if you're talking to an expert online about meditation or is this video any good. So I think employers can really be a trusted source for all that information, that you're actually getting really good support from like a real reputable source.
And it's funny, or well, it's not funny, it's interesting that you mentioned Zoom fatigue, because like that's something that a lot of clients of ours have said to us, God, I've been on Zooms back to back, I'm absolutely drained. But what other people are noticing, that you're finishing your work day at maybe 5 or half 5, you're going straight downstairs to the kids, you're straight in, like there's no commute home, there's no dart home, Lewis, 45 minutes to yourself to check your messages, to catch up. So there's an awful lot going on. You're going from a very busy maybe work from home day back into a work from home evening, and you might have a lot going on, and you can see how fatigue kicks in very quickly, and it's all linked.
Yeah, that decompression piece isn't there, where you have your half an hour commute, and sometimes people love it. They listen to book, they read a book, or they listen to music. People give out about in the morning maybe because of traffic, but sometimes on the way home it's nice. Now there's a balance with everything. Like some days I love not having a commute and having to get in the car for an hour into town. You know what I mean? So there's a balance with everything, but it is difficult when you're always on all day long. So it's so important, even on relationship stuff with couples that are working hard, or families, understanding that there's going to be tension if you're always on, and giving each other space and time to do some social stuff, to go for a walk themselves, to just that you dovetail and work together. And all of this stuff is such a new behavior that is challenging. So we're all learning in live, as they say. But there's a lot more ways to go, but we're trying to do our bit, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess like when you've got an employer looking for that 1 minute reset for people to do, I mean, that's really positive, because if a Zoom call is a work call, then whoever's managing that, they have a bit of power to do something for their team if they're the one organizing the call. I mean, do the 1 minute reset with everyone still on the call at the end. Say, right before we log off this call, let's all just take a minute, turn off your video, let's take that time to reset before you go into the next one. And like we said, revisit. Do you need, I mean, video is a great way to connect with everyone, especially at the start, and see the faces. Now, look, that we're getting used to this, we know it might be a few more months before we're back in the office. Take a look at that schedule, look for the next few weeks ahead and what meetings you have in, and see if you can reorganize them just to suit everyone better, and make sure we don't get that kind of fatigue, because some people are even only starting their kind of work day in the evening after they get off all the calls, never mind, the home life. And I guess the other thing we haven't mentioned is the people who actually are living maybe alone and don't actually, you might be busy and distracted with kids, and then there's some people who actually are just living a very, very quiet life outside work at the moment. And I think supports for them and is just as important, that dealing with that mental health challenge of feeling isolated socially as well as kind of in work and away from the office.
Because everybody's coming from a different background, they're coming from a different place, they're coming from a different level of dealing with stress pre-COVID. So like people have different levels, and I think you have to appeal to everybody on your team, because not everybody is as galvanized for what's ahead. And like I think it's about definitely looking at everything individually. And then kind of just helping everybody in different ways. Like we've just done a survey, a remote survey, and we had about 225 responses this week. Like 68% of people that responded said like no longer having a commute to work, that was the biggest benefit they felt from remote. But like one of the really big stats that stuck out for me was that 71% of people stated that they miss colleague relationships the most. Like that was the thing that stood out for me, that 71% of the survey said, what do you miss most from the last 3 months? And they say missing the relationship with their work colleagues. And like when you're trying to build or keep a high performance team together, that's got to be important going forward.
Yeah, we have to work on that, keeping that sense of community alive. I mean, making work more human, I guess, and more fun is one of our key goals with Peptalk, and creating that sense of community. And like you say there, when you lose that, And when you don't have something to fall back on, like that technology, or like, you know, some kind of social media experience you can bring, because that does really, really help. And then it is tough. And again, I just think the managers have a responsibility, and each of us, everyone inside an organization can be a leader when it comes to that, to reach out to that new person, or to reach out to someone who you used to meet at the coffee shop every day who mightn't be on your team. And I think that, you know, you could really actually impact on someone's working from home experience just by taking that one small step.
Yeah. It's interesting, like there's a couple of phrases being bandied around. Is it work from home or is it work from anywhere? And I think because we've all been thrown into work from home where we haven't got the ideal setup, we haven't got our creche open, we have to just get on with it. Like, this is not the ideal of what is ahead. I think we've become, maybe 5 to 7 years, we've brought it forward in terms of remote work. But like, look at how like companies like Facebook, Twitter, Shopify have all announced in the last 2 weeks that they're trying to become remote first companies. And like, there's definitely benefits. You have a broader talent pool. Yeah, obviously not commuting, but there are negatives there too. And I think it's interesting, Eilish, you mentioned the in-house days. I think that's going to be part of every company going forward that is pondering, can we do this remote thing? Can we get rid of the big office, and can we have a smaller office whereby, if this is working well for our business at the moment, can this really help us drive on because we've maybe less commercial costs, and if we can engage with our team properly, it's win-win.
Yeah, there's massive benefits. I mean, we've talked about a lot of them. There's the lack of commute. There's the potentially more time for family. Potentially, not, we're not seeing it right now, but there is more time for exercise and looking after yourself. And definitely, some people, while some people are struggling with anxiety, some people are actually looking after themselves in ways they haven't before, because they may have lost up to even 4 hours of commute each day. And then, like you say, for organizations, there's definitely financial benefits. And I guess what's going to come out of the COVID experience is, I do think we're going to learn quicker as to what will work for organizations. I mean, some of the research done, I think coming out of Stanford, recommended that you have at least kind of one in-house office day a week, if you can, and that actually really promotes productivity as well as a really good physical setup at home for your office, and that those two things will actually enhance your work from home productivity incredibly. So, you know, if employees can and employers can put their heads together and make sure whatever the new policy is, it benefits both employer and employee, then I think it's a win-win. And we don't see things going back, I guess, to the way they were, and that should be a positive. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And look, I think we've had a really interesting chat this afternoon, and like, it's really interesting to see, well, where is employee well-being now in Ireland today, like at the moment. And like, I suppose I'd probably leave it with the example of, like, it's a bit like we're on a long car journey at the moment. You're driving at night, you've got the lights on, but you got to kind of look at what's 200-300 meters ahead to get to your overall destination. And like, I think a lot of business that might feel that they haven't delivered as yet for their employees since kind of work from home kicked in almost 3 months ago, but like, they can still step up their game, and they can get in there and really kind of get in on this journey to help their employees out.
Yeah, I think this period has really fast-tracked the human side and the emphasis of the human, or the individual in the workplace. We would have always said in early days, like, the individual doesn't leave their baggage at the door when they come up to the office in town, and then collect it on the way out at 5 o'clock. You know, you want people for their personality, for their creativity, for their drive, for their like whatever their strengths. And obviously, with every strength there's a weakness. You know what I mean? So you go and they come together. So well-being just emphasizes and helps mold that conversation and gets the best out of it. So I think we'll start to see in the States, so probably 5-10 years ahead from a well-being point of view and in employees. I think Ireland and I suppose the world is going to be fast-tracked up to that level, and once you start seeing it, you'll start to see the benefits of it, I think, and you'll start to see the output been increased. And when you kind of level out your environment and get all those little bits right that Eilish said, a couple of in-house days, a bit of flexibility, a bit of that, a bit of trust, you know, all these things will mesh. And this period will give us a real good chance to learn what works and what doesn't. I think off the back of it, when it's normality, the next normality comes, I think be well set up, and the emphasis and realization of the human side of performance, not just the skill set that the employer wants. For your accountant, they want to be good at accountancy. If you're a lawyer, you want to be good at legal jargon. The individual is just as important, and their motivation and how energetic they are, and how they communicate and have feedback, and all of those personal life skills are so important, and we believe we can help on that side, and that's what we're trying to do.
I think we had a really interesting chat, guys. And look, thanks so much to both of you, Eilish and Bernard, like for being so generous with your time and talking us through Peptalk and your experiences. So just to say thanks a million for your time today. I really appreciate it, and very best of luck moving forward.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
Cheers.
Cheers.